Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Innovation Room podcast. I'm Rhianon Huff here with my co-host Tori Homann. And today we're talking about how to help employees become autonomous and really that self-motivation. I know it's a hot topic that we hear all the time, that buzzword of autonomy. So
Yeah,
looking forward to diving into that topic today.
absolutely. So many employees, especially in the millennial and Gen Z generation, they really want workflow autonomy, but sometimes from the management perspective, it's really hard to feel confident in our employees in their ability to self-regulate their workflows, right? So it's not that we don't trust that they're capable of it, but how do we make sure that we're really helping employees run their own workflows so that they can make decisions on their own? That's what we're going to dive into today, just our best tips and tricks and practices for how to empower employees in the workplace. All right, y'all, before we dive into our first topic, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Innovation Room podcast wherever you get your podcast. Now, autonomy is our topic today. Before we get into the nitty gritty, first we have to really just define what is autonomy. What does that look like in the workplace? So, Rhea, I think you've got some ideas on what this looks like.
Right. So I think everybody may have a little bit of a different opinion on what exactly autonomy is. And a lot of times, autonomy is really often suited to the opposite. It's the way opposite
Mm,
of which is being micromanaged versus autonomy. And I think that
mhm,
true autonomy that works well for the workplace is kind of somewhere in the middle. So
mm,
autonomy really mean it's giving those employees the freedom to kind of work each and every day in a way that kind of suits them best, their
mm,
personality, giving them a little bit of freedom and also empowering them to make decisions that they can in the workplace, that it's not necessarily always have to run to the manager for every single little decision. It's also giving them a little bit more control over their tasks and how they execute those tasks. It's allowing them to be open and the freedom to decide, even potentially depending on the company, where and when they work, a little bit of hour freedom, a little bit of flexibility in that. So when I look at autonomy in the workplace, that's really what I kind of dive into is basically the freedom of employees to look at their day and be able to plan their day in a way that works best for them, suits them best, also in a way that they can be empowered to really take control over that job or take control over their tasks every day, that they have that full responsibility over that. And then also, that doesn't mean that they're left in the dust to just go about things by themselves. It means they still have that support system from their managers that
mm.
help them with that safety net, that they always have somebody there, but they really want to work toward that goal of moving forward each and every day.
Yeah, absolutely. I think your definition is spot on. And I think the thing that all managers encounter is that you have these employees where you recognize their ability. You see, like, okay, you are very capable, but for whatever reason, there's some sort of like barrier there that we just can't quite press past. And so then that employee is constantly coming to you and saying, Rhiannon, I don't know how to do this. Rhiannon, what decision should I make here? How do I talk to this client? Right. And of course, there's always going to be coaching, mentoring, leadership happening from the management perspective, but how do you walk that line? And so just want to acknowledge that I think a lot of managers really feel that of, oh my
Right.
gosh, I can never leave this person alone because if I leave them alone, they're gonna like mess something up or they're gonna come to me anyway or whatever that is. And what's really interested me about this topic is just really where did these what was the foundation that was laid for some of these folks? And we tend to see it again at that generational kind of division for millennials and Gen Z. How are they essentially raised? And what does that mean for the way that they operate in the workplace? I am myself in between millennials and Gen Z. I'm a, what's the name of it? Millennial, I think is the name of I'm like a cusper between the two. But I think what I see in a lot of my peers is that when you were a kid in school, mom and dad did so much for you. And it's motivated out of love for your children, of course, but I think that's how a lot of folks in these generations were raised, to have someone else do everything for them. And so then they never, even things like autonomous and creative play were not a thing for a lot of kids.
So what I think about when you say that, obviously being a parent myself and things
Mhm.
like that, again, you have a lot of things that come to play in that. And a lot
Yeah.
of, again, buzzwords. You hear like the helicopter parent,
Yeah. Right.
nowadays, or it's the world scary out there. And
Yeah. It is.
so one thing that comes to mind when we talk about this is technology, social media,
Yep.
and how that has affected these kids that are now grown into adults. So one thing is, they had everything at their fingertips. A
Yep.
lot of times they didn't need to look for answers or search for answers. It's right there. We live in this
Mhm.
generation of, we want things now. We don't need to dig for the answers. We don't need to really think out, because we have Google right in front of us. And
Right.
Google's going to tell me, Alexa's going to tell me what time it is. What like, it's those little things.
Right.
Like, I even hear my teenager now saying, "Hey Alexa, what's," and gives her a math problem. And I'm like, "What?" I didn't have that when I was younger. But
That's
it's right
crazy.
there, and I think that
Yeah.
definitely plays a part in it, because what have seen in the past in management is, and what I try to do with my team is, they'll ask me a question, and it's
Mhm.
one of those of, "I want you to tell me what you think the direction this is supposed to go first. What do
Mhm.
you think? And then we'll walk through this together."
Mhm.
So, it's one of those things that sometimes I get really frustrated, because it's like, "No, no, but I need this answer and I need to keep moving, or I can't keep moving."
Right.
And they almost get
Right.
this frustration. On top of that, I do think also, for me and my team, obviously we work with a group of project managers. So
Mm.
we are going through the problem every single day, and scenarios where they have to make quick decisions come up on a
Mhm.
daily basis. But another thing that really, I think, has affected this is, we'll say, COVID. And a lot of people
Yeah.
moved from in the office setting. And then now I think more and more people are wanting that flexibility of work at home,
Mhm.
which
Mhm.
is a perk a lot of times, but you don't have somebody right there. When I was in the office, I have learned that people would just turn their chair and say, "Hey, Rhiannon, what do I do? Hey, Rhiannon, what do I do?" And it just became a habit of answering those questions, just because we needed to keep moving. Now we're in this weird place, and we've been here for 4 years, but I think that we're creating more of that space where you have to be autonomous. Yes, I am a phone call away, but I'm not right in front of you. And sometimes you got to check on the phone and you got to make a quick decision.
Right.
So it's enabling and fostering more of a openness for to allow that. But again,
Mhm.
is everybody ready for that? Is everybody
Exactly.
skilled to have that? And that, as managers, is what Tori and I are really diving in and talking to today, is how do you know that your team is ready for those skills? Or if you feel like they're lacking in some of that ability to really take reign of that job and move
Mhm.
forward the way that you want them to do, how can you as a manager guide them? How can you as a manager really
Exactly.
instill in them that they can do this, and that empower them to be able to move forward and know things? So I think that one of those things that I do personally is, really from the very beginning, laying out expectations. So
100%.
being autonomous, it does not mean we just throw you in the pond and you learn how to swim. Like,
Fast.
good
Yeah.
luck,
Yeah.
because especially with our industry, there is a large learning curve. I think as a manager, laying out those expectations from the very beginning and letting them know, here's what it's going to look like. Here's what the setup is going to look like. Here's what the expectations are. Here's what's going to happen in your first week. Here's what's going to happen in your first 2 weeks. Here's what's going to happen in a month, and here's my expectations along the way, and really laying that out for them. Again, Tori and I have talked about this time and time again. It's that over communication.
Yes.
And when we think that we've communicated too much, it's probably not enough. And that's the thing
Yeah.
where we will continue learning with this, that people feel secure and they feel more empowered when they know what to expect. They know
Yes.
what's going into that.
Yes, absolutely. I found for myself that setting the expectations literally as I'm interviewing people
Oh,
is a
yeah.
great like a great thing. Now, it doesn't mean that person that you're interviewing is necessarily going to hear and understand you completely or really know what it means, but at the very least you can say, "Remember when we interviewed and you and I said, "Look, this is how I work and I need you to be able to do this also." And you were like, "Yeah, no problem, Tori." Then at least I know that we've had that conversation. My personal workflow style as just individually and as a manager is that I do not want to micromanage you. I don't have the time to micromanage you. That's not fun for me, and it's certainly not fun for you. So I want you to have ownership over your work. Think, especially in marketing, right, when things can be a little bit more creative. It's really fun for people. But then if I'm constantly having to like look over your shoulder and be like, I really think the angle of this on this particular graphic should be a little more like this instead of this. No one wants that. And it's not, I'm not helping you make meaningful improvements to your work. And so I say that in the interview. This is
Right.
how I work. And I want you to be able to take a project. If I'm giving you clarity on goals and timeline and a little bit of structure, I need you to take that and run with it. And that might apply maybe more to marketing than it does to like the project management side read that you do. But I need that from my employees. And so I tell them that in the interview.
Right
And
up
then we
front.
talk about it exactly right up front before I even know if I'm going to hire this person. And then we talk about it again once they become an employee. And then we're constantly having conversations and I'll ask, do you need more direction? Do you need more structure? Or are you happy to run with this? And then once you come up with something, then we'll work through making appropriate changes and refining and improving it. But I want you to have that freedom. Also because I want that as an
Right.
employee. I want my boss to give me that kind of freedom. More fun for me, provides more meaning in my work. So yeah, I think
Absolutely.
setting the expectation right there from the beginning is so
And
important.
also, in my interviews, I always ask, you know, what's a work setting that worked really well for you?
That's a great
Explain to
question.
me how your manager was over you. What
Mm,
questions did they ask? How often did they interact with you? What do
mm,
you need in a workplace setting? What do you need from a manager?
hmm.
Almost like what was your favorite manager and why in the
Yeah.
past? So trying to pull that out of them because not
Mm,
everybody is going to be okay in that setting and not
yeah.
everybody is going to be that good fit. So really pulling that out in the beginning and trying to figure out again, we work from home working remotely. Have they worked remotely before? Do they
Mm,
know what that's like?
okay.
How are the feelings? Have they worked in hybrid before? So really
Mm,
truly trying to gauge what their feelings are. And sometimes again, in an interview process, it is really hard. And until you
mm,
get to that nitty-gritty of the actual day-to-day work, it is hard to pull that out. But asking up front and setting those expectations, I think is very important. I always say I'm not a babysitter. I'm not here to tell you exactly what to do. I'm here to help.
right.
I'm here to guide. I'm here to lead. And with that, what I also tell my employees is one of my biggest, I'll say, rules is if something goes wrong, that doesn't mean you're in trouble, but I need
Right.
to know about it. And that is
Right.
one thing that I strive to my employees. And I think that has to be to have that autonomy, to have that
Yeah.
level of trust. If something goes wrong, they need to know, okay, it's not necessarily that I'm going to get yelled at or I'm going to be in trouble, but she needs to know. And that
Mm,
way I can help you pick up those pieces. I can help you talk to the client. I know ahead of time before I get that call from the client screaming, saying,
mm,
what the heck is going on here?
right.
So it just is that trust between the employee and the manager to allow those, we all stumble. We all fail at times,
Yeah.
and that's
So
okay.
true.
And I think as a manager also laying that out because I think that's really scary for employees to say, what's going to happen if I screw up? What's going to
Yeah.
happen if, so there's times I did it today. I asked for somebody to do something and they said, "Hey, that's
Mm,
not my location." I'm sorry. I apologize. I thought that was.
yeah.
You acknowledging in and of yourself that, "Hey, I screw up too. It happened."
Mhm.
In
Yeah.
letting that and knowing that we're there to back you up
Mm,
when that does happen. And I think that's so crucial to set that setting up to make sure that plays out the way that you really would like it to play out.
100%. I think you got your finger on the pulse of one of the most fundamental aspects of creating employee autonomy, which is that trust and letting them know. being vulnerable yourself and acknowledging that you make mistakes, but then when then that employee really feels empowered to just go and make decisions. And sometimes it's okay to pump the brakes a little bit and be like, "Hey, Reese, like I'm really not sure about this decision," right? And especially in some of those smaller things or things that, you've been here for 3 months, but we're hoping you're going to be here longer than 3 months. And this
Right.
is the decision you're going to have to make on a daily, weekly basis. And I can't help you every time. And so especially for decisions like that, having that trust with your manager, with your leader, knowing that they've got your back and that if you make a mistake, it doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It doesn't mean that you're going to get fired. It doesn't mean that, that I'm going to get on the phone and yell at you.
Yeah.
It just means that we're going to learn and then make a better decision next time. But people learn, as we all know, so much better from experience than they
Right.
do from me just checking the boxes, right? Like
Right.
I also teach dance as like my off hours job, and I love it, but I see kids sometimes who I'm like, wow, I'm concerned about them for the long term just because I see that they don't know how to make decisions on their own. Even in the dance studio, they're unsure of how to really just take ownership of different things, or even taking ownership of their own behavior is a struggle too from a teaching perspective. But I think you're totally right, Ree. Like building building that trust is so important. But I want to flip the conversation here because sometimes, even when you set that expectation in the interview, sometimes even when you set those expectations as an employee is training, right? You're trying to give them autonomy. You're trying to give them ownership of their work. Sometimes you get stuck, not stuck, but you have the challenge of an employee who really is struggling with this. And I know that like you've dealt with
Oh
employees
yeah.
like this. What do you do when you find yourself in that situation?
Again, I'm very upfront and
Mhm.
also I adjust.
Mm,
So I truly believe as a manager, you're going to have a lot of different personalities underneath of you.
mm.
Some people crave this autonomy more than others. Some
Yes.
people
Yeah.
need the guidance, and it
Mhm.
sometimes depends a little bit on their personality traits as well,
Mhm.
along with their skill set. But again, it's that kind of like kids. I play the mother hen role of my department, and it's like kids where it's okay to fall and scrape your knee and get up and you still can keep moving and encouraging them. So again, the trust that we just talked about and
Mhm.
opening the door for that in the very
Mhm.
beginning, letting them
Mhm.
know that it's okay and that you will be
Mhm.
there to put the band-aid on.
Mhm.
The second thing is really when you have to have a conversation of, hey, here's what the expectations are, and I'm seeing that you're not having sometimes it's the confidence. And sometimes
Mhm.
people just need that confidence boost. And I've had
Yeah.
this conversation with employees before, and sometimes it's a tough conversation to have because that
Mm.
can be a really hot topic, scary topic for somebody
Mm.
and to walk into. And it's a hard, kind of uncomfortable conversation that sometimes you don't really want to hear. But it's also like that compliment sandwich where you start with that positive and saying, "Hey, you're doing really well with A, B, C, and D." What I'm
Yeah.
noticing is you're coming to me a lot with C, D, and E. You're
Right.
coming to me a lot with these questions quite frequently. I really want to know because I know it's there. I really want to start hearing when you come to me with a question, you're going to hear from me. What do you think? What do you think the answer is? And again, continuing that repetitive cycle so that they know the next time they ask you that question to challenge them and say, hey, I know she's going to ask me. So I've had the employees actually flip and instead of asking me that question, say, hey, Ree, here's what I think is I'm supposed to do. Do you agree with that?
Mhm.
Absolutely. And
Mm.
then what that's a good path to take. And then you may be able to tweak it a little bit right there. That
Mm.
opens that door for that conversation. And then slowly again, giving them more and more. For us, it's a certain proposal limit, price. Okay, upping that proposal up to a $4,000 proposal or a $5,000 proposal. You can do that proposal on your own without people having to check it and continuing to give them those little steps. And
Mm.
sometimes it is baby steps of them feeling more and more like, okay, I'm doing a good job. And then you
Mhm.
definitely got to check in with them frequently. And
Yeah.
not when the issues come up. These are temperature checks that you want to check in on them. How are you feeling? Are you
Mhm.
stressed? What is stressing you out the most? What do you feel like
Mm.
you're having the most issues with in your workflow process? And asking them, I think you're doing a really good job, but tell me, what do you think stresses you out most in your day? And so temperature checking them frequently
Mm.
and encouraging them. So the other things with autonomy is knowing why autonomy is important. And a lot of times we find that it is empowering employees. So for me, that ownership word that you talked about just a minute ago, I
Yeah.
want my employees to take ownership from their project from the very, very start to the very, very end. When they
Yeah.
have that meat in there, when they have their fingers deep, they have their claws
Yes.
deep in that project, they own it and they want it to go well. And they want it to do that, it to excel. And they want that awesome, client feedback. So
Mhm.
also when we do get those positive feedbacks from the client, I blast those all over our
Yeah.
team's page, all for the entire company to say, hey, so and so did such a great job. And I just wanna shout them out for this. And again,
Right.
it's those positive reinforcements along the way that you don't think are that big of a deal that end up being a really big deal to that employee. So there's a lot sandwiched in there, and there's never a perfect formula for what you can do. But those are
Yeah.
definitely things that I stick with on a regular basis to really gear my employees to want to make those decisions and to empower them to make those decisions.
No, I think that's all incredible feedback and insight there, Ree. And I want to point y'all to, I want to say it's episode 30 of the podcast. So just a few episodes ago, we did a whole episode on workplace communication. And a lot of the stuff we talked about there really applied here too, of building that trust, doing those temperature checks like Rhea is talking about. We even spent some time, I believe it was in that episode, talking about the DISC profile, which is like a personality workplace personality kind of test. And so Rhea, you're talking about, everyone's different. Everyone needs their own to be approached in a slightly different way. The DISC profile is a really helpful way to understand people, what motivates them, what causes fear in them, and then how do I just approach them in a way that they're going to be really receptive. So I want to say I think it's the C's that are really afraid of failure. And so you'll see a C type tending to just ask more questions, and they really want a lot of clarity. And that's because it comes from a good place of they want to be really successful. They want to do a great job, right? But that's just an example of a nuanced personality type where you're going to have to juggle a little bit more of the providing structure, providing answers and support,
Well, for
right?
C's, for example, and I'll dive into this a little bit. For example, you have people that are very process driven. So
Yes.
when you have somebody that is very process driven and you have a job that there are a lot of gray areas, we can't always give them that exact process.
Right.
Again, laying out as much as we possibly can and learning how each individual receives information is also very
Mhm.
important. So sometimes I can give people literally a list of here's what you do step by step by step,
Mhm.
but I'm recognizing it's just not clicking. They keep making the same mistakes over and over again. What's happening?
Mhm.
I will, in that situation, have somebody else from my team go over it go over that process with them because sometimes it's just hearing it from a different person. Somebody else
Mm.
will give a different perspective or explain it a little bit
Yeah.
differently, and they might pick up on that better. I will also look at it, okay, in a different way. Can I give them a video? Can I give them, is there a
Mm.
YouTube video that it goes along with this process or this skill or the internal components of a sign?
Mm.
Or is it something that I can do the exact same process, but actually record it through a Teams and put photos behind it so they can see the process actually visually? So
Mm.
that's the other thing when I talk about adapting when you're learning the skill set and how people like to work throughout their workflow throughout the day. You really, as a manager, have to tune in and realize, okay, if somebody is not, I always put the blame back on myself
Mm.
in regards to if somebody's not succeeding, especially in the beginning, have I done the same thing over and over again? Clearly, that's not working.
Mm.
Let's adjust. As
Mm.
a manager, it's us adjusting to our
Yeah.
employees to make them be as successful as they possibly can.
Yeah.
And once they see that success and they see that, hey, I can do this, I am getting that positive reinforcement from my manager saying, oh,
Mhm.
good job or kudos or whatever, that's when you actually see that them blossom into the light bulb moment and you see the confidence start building and saying, oh, I can do this. I can. And again, you look at what is the important, why is autonomy so important and why is this such an important word?
Mhm.
And you see a lot of times those people that you can empower, they have increased job satisfaction. You want them to develop as a strong employee to potentially build them into leadership positions in the
Mhm.
future. You want to have that increased productivity
Yeah.
usually. Again, they feel when they feel empowered, they want to get more done. It's on them. This is important for them.
Mhm.
But also they're creating their own process
Right.
and that can speed up their day and they feel committed and more happy to go about their everyday
Mhm.
projects because they had their say in it and
Right.
how that process went.
Right.
There's also that improved work-life balance when people are autonomous.
Exactly.
Usually you got lower
I'm gonna
turnover
say
rate
it definitely increases
because they
retention.
feel okay.
Yep.
Somebody cares about me. Somebody cares about what I think, what I want.
Yep.
They're not scared necessarily to say, hey, this isn't working for me. Or I always encourage constantly for my employees, what do you think in regards to how should our department move forward?
Mm.
Should we tweak anything a little bit? What
Mhm.
would you like to see? So asking for that constant feedback for them and showing them that their opinion matters. And I think that obviously when we look at flexibility and why people enjoy or stay at a workplace for a long time, obviously there's money. Everybody is motivated differently, but there's money, there's things like this.
Mhm.
But when people feel, and I think this is universal, when people feel heard, important, that that them showing up to work every single day makes a difference because hey, I'm the only one that knows this project inside and out. It is important.
Mhm.
I think that it just gives them those tools that they need to really say, I'm going to do this. And there's a reason why I'm doing that. And it's not just I'm showing up for these daily tasks and knocking them out because
Mhm.
somebody told me to.
Oh, no.
So I guess
100%.
that's a lot of information for such a short topic, but it is something that I am very, I guess, it's important to me. It's
Yeah.
important to my team that they know that as a manager, building and leading people to succeed, I'm okay if somebody wants to go to the next step in their career
Mhm.
and looks at me as saying, "Hey, Rhiannon helped me with that."
Mhm.
That's okay. Not as we look at employee turnover, it's like you want to keep everybody in this bubble, but the more you grow people personally, and the more that they feel that autonomy in and of themselves and not just their role, again, the more that they're going to be loyal to you,
Yep.
to your team, to your company. Yes, you will lose people as you grow them. However, you also have the flip side of, shoot, I don't know if the next person is going to do this for me. I
Mhm.
don't know if the next person is going to understand me the way that Rhiannon does or that Tori does,
Mhm.
that they give me that freedom to really want to do the best to my ability every single day. And if something doesn't work for me, I can let them know and that's okay. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, such good insights, such good thoughts. And the desire for autonomous employees, it comes from a place of like, it's literally just more practical, right? It's just generally better for the business, it's better for the team. But I'm sure you can all see it, hear in Rhiannon's voice and just see and her that it also comes from a place of like deep compassion for her employees and desire to see them succeed and like a real genuine care for them. And so it's really just all around. There's no argument there, right? Autonomous employees make your business better. They improve your team. They improve your life personally. Like, again, I don't want to sit there and to micromanage an employee all day long, and they don't want that either. And so it's just better for all of us in pretty much every way. So yeah, I find too, I'll just tag this on here at the end. I find too that when an employee is coming to me and saying, Tori, I want more. I need more support. I need more structure here. And sometimes I'm like, ooh, I see that. And you're right. I didn't give you enough. I'm sorry. Here's more. Here's more structure. Or sometimes if I'm doing that very intentionally to push them into doing a little bit more work. I'll literally just say, hey, the reason I made this choice and the reason I'm not going to give you more guidance is because I want you to just make the decision. So just being really upfront with them about why you're making the choices that you're making, right? It's that transparency, it's that trust, and having confidence in each other that we all have the other's best interests at heart, and that I want you to succeed because I want my team to succeed because I want the business to succeed. So it all comes from a really good place and circles back around on it for sure.
And I am a huge proponent of, if my employees are successful, if my employees are happy, if they feel heard, if they feel empowered and important,
Mm,
then I succeed.
yep.
Because happy employees make for an awesome culture,
Yeah.
an awesome workplace where you can just see that exude from them to your other
Yeah.
employees. And again, they're that loyalty that they want to see the department succeed.
Yes.
They want to see those
Exactly.
numbers increase, or that client so happy that you changed their day.
Yeah.
It's those little teeny things that are just so important. And I think sometimes we just miss in the daily
Yes.
grind of
We
everyday
do.
work and tasking, and we're just trying to get through the day.
Yeah.
So I would just encourage those that have people working underneath of them to just stop and revisit this often.
Mm,
I know you got a lot on your
yeah.
shoulders. I know you got a lot of responsibility on your shoulders, but if you just stop and individually reach out to each one of your employees on a regular basis
Mm,
and just say, "Hey, how you doing?"
mm,
Check in with them, or, "You're doing a really good job. Man, that was a hard project that you just
yeah.
completed. Honestly, I was just sitting back and watching you do your thing
Yeah.
because you did amazing."
Right.
It is those little things that mean so
Yeah.
much and that create that courage and that confidence and that empowerment to just say, "Hey, I got this.
Mm-hmm.
I got it."
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yep. 100%. Well, y'all, thanks for joining us for today's episode. I hope there was something insightful for everyone. I know I learned from Rhiannon. I always do whenever I talk to her. So just, yeah, such great insight, such great info. You can also sign up for our monthly InAssign newsletter. That's going to be in the link in the description. And that provides just more educational resources like what you get here on the podcast. And we do offer some exclusive content there as well that you can only get by signing up for that newsletter. And that is monthly. So we're not going to flood your inbox with a ton of stuff. So no worries there. But let us know what you guys are doing in your own workplaces that you're like, hey, this is a really great trick or tip for empowering employees. I found that this really helps on my team or in my business. So just let us know in the comments below. And until next time, y'all, keep innovating.